Peter's Box. Life is for the living.
Hello. In my previous video, what do atheists believe in? The answer that I provided seems to be very unsatisfactory to a lot of people, and myself included. The reason is that in that video, I didn't tell you what atheists believe in. I only talked about who an atheist is, which is the absence of a belief in a God or deity. I didn't really talk about what atheists do believe in. And the reason is that that question, what do atheists believe in, is quite a problematic question, because when you talk about belief, there's a subject of interest. So for example, believe in love, believe in aliens, believe in democracy, and what have you. Now the question, what do atheists believe in, usually has a subtext that expects an atheist to answer on the lines of, I believe in some kind of supernatural power. But then that defeats the very purpose of the term atheism, because the term atheism talks about the lack of belief in a God. And therefore, when you talk about atheism, you are not referring to a belief in God. It's rather the lack of belief in God. But as a society, we are interested in what people actually think and live by, which is why the question, what do atheists believe in, usually might not bring out the best answer. That's a very problematic question. The question should be, how do atheists live their lives without God? What do they live by? And today I'm going to answer that question. What do atheists live their lives by if they do not believe in God? Let me take you back to the genesis of the whole atheist-theist argument. The problem is that for most religious people, they can't see how you can live your life without God. It's actually based on three things. Questions that I receive almost every time I tell someone that I do not believe in God. They then ask, who created the world then? What is the origin of the universe? If God didn't do it, then how did we arrive here? The second question has to do with morality, where it is difficult to fathom how a non-believer, an unbeliever, is going to live their life without any moral compass, which for the religious person, the moral compass should be God. Then the third issue has to do with prayer and devotion. I usually receive a lot of questions like, in your difficult times, who do you pray to? And do you have any group that you attend for fellowship or anything of that sort? For the believer, the answer should be, you should pray to God, you should belong to a church, or you should belong to a particular congregation. If you're Muslim, you should belong to a particular sect or what have you. Now, to these questions, an atheist might provide an answer that might differ from another atheist, because atheists don't have a common belief. It differs from one person to the other. However, there is a very common philosophy among atheists that they live their lives by. It's basically an axiom that they manage and told their lives by. And they are also based on these three questions that I mentioned earlier about the origin of the universe, devotion, prayer, and lastly, morality. To the question, who created the world, or what is the origin of the universe? A lot of atheists would rely on reason and toe the line of science to provide explanations as to how the universe came to be. So the first pillar is that of the scientific method, that it is a better way to explain things in the world rather than faith. Then to the second question of prayer and devotion. A lot of atheists do believe that human beings are responsible for their upkeep, that there's no agency that is going to ensure our progress rather than ourselves. And therefore, most atheists would rely on the help of other human beings, so that community spirit. Then last, in terms of morality, A lot of atheists would also toe the line of reason that morality comes from us as human beings. It doesn't come from an external source. And therefore, whatever happens to be described as good or bad will be dependent on the effects and the causes of the human interaction. Now, these three pillars I mentioned actually form a philosophy that is called humanism. Humanism is simply a philosophy that considers the human being the center of attention, which is as opposed to religion, which has a god or deity as the center of attention. So in humanism, reason, science, individuality, the human individuality is upheld rather than believe in the supernatural, which is why you find most humanists as non-religious people, because humanism in itself does not use religion in managing lives. It rather uses rationality. It appeals to science to provide better explanations of the universe. And lastly, it involves being empathetic to the human condition and trying to understand the human condition. So there you have it. Most atheists will call themselves humanists, which means that they live by axioms and principles of humanity, human rights, empathy, rationality or reason, and lastly, having that community spirit. So this question is a better question to ask an atheist, that how do you live your life without God? You are likely to get a better answer than to simply ask, what do you believe in? Because when you say, what do you believe in, is too much of a broad question to narrow down an answer to. So I hope this actually helps you now to know what atheists believe in. But mind you, not all atheists are humanists. But once you're a humanist, it presupposes that you're a non-religious person, because by definition, humanism doesn't use religion as a tool to navigate life. It uses reason or rationality. It goes the way of science, and it uses empathy and the human condition to go through life. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to Peter's Box.
Peter's Box. Life is for the living.